Hello. So today's meeting with Agnieszka Błędowska was inspired by the seminar class that I held this year with students at Adam Mickiewicz University in Art History Institute in Poznań, entitled Art and Borderland. During one class, we played two games by Agnieszka Błędowska that I bidded on during the garage sale before Christmas Eve. During that garage sale, money was collected for refugees. And then after playing that game, students who are gathered here within the meeting, they were sharing their experience on the game and also analyzing them as a work of art. So we are going to share it. But before, I would like to welcome Agnieszka Błędowska, Polish artist, who graduated from Fine Art Academy in Poznań, where she studied from 1988 till 1993 at the Faculty of Painting, Graphics and Sculpture. She completed her diploma in 1993 in the Studio of Drawing. From 1993 till 2003, she was an assistant in the Intermedia studio led by Tomasz Sikorski. And then she completed her PhD at the Institute of Visual Arts in Zielona Góra. In 2002, she got her first degree in graphic art, Faculty of Painting and Graphic Arts, Academy of Fine Arts in Gdańsk. From 2005 till 2015, she was a senior lecturer at the State Higher School in Głogów. From 2007 till 2017, she was assistant professor at the Faculty of Arts at the College of Social Skills in Poznań. Since 2017, she has been assistant professor at the Department of Design in Szczecin. So welcome, and we are going to start with the artist talk. Afterwards, we are going to discuss our experience with those games. Okay, the floor is yours.
Dobra. Od czego zaczynam projektowanie gry? Wybieram problem, poszukuję adekwatnej formy wizualnej. Jednocześnie staram się myśleć o mechanice, która w odpowiedni sposób zaplanowaną narrację zbuduje. Stąd też te grafiki gier, które projektuję, są takie proste graficznie.
Where do I start designing a game? Along with a chosen problem, I look for visually adequate form. At the same time, I try to think about mechanics that I can apply when sketching a plan to guide the narrative of the game of a specific purpose. Hence, my game boards usually operate with a simple graphical designs.
Plansze obrazy powstają często z inspiracji realnymi zdarzeniami, często rozpoznanymi wyłącznie za pośrednictwem mediów, przekazów medialnych. Tak też się stało w przypadku serii gier, którą tworzę od 2017 roku. Nadałam jej wspólny tytuł Jak zostaje się uchodźcą. I w początkowej fazie gry tworzyłam jako pełnowymiarowe obiekty, które prezentowałam na wystawach w taki sposób, żeby ich odbiorcy, uczestnicy mogli w te gry zagrać. Powstawały zwykle w pojedynczych egzemplarzach i gry miały pierwszą odsłonę w galerii Kala w Poznaniu na wystawie pod tytułem Rozproszone strategie.
The board pictures are created by inspiration from real events, often recognized only through media messages. This is also what happened in the case of the game series How Does One Become a Refugee, which has been in development since 2017. In the initial phase, I created the games as full-size objects in single copies, which allowed active participation and interaction of participants during the exhibitions. The game had the first iteration during the exhibition Disperse Strategies, curated by Katarzyna Kucharska in December of 2017 in Poznań Scala Gallery.
Teraz pokażę wam grę Hit the Game. To była gra, która... Zrzut ekranu. Udostępnij ekran. Prowadzący wyłączył opcję udostępniania ekranu.
Okay, let me fix it. Okay.
O. Właśnie, to jest gra Game Hit the Game, która powstała z inspiracji sytuacją na tak zwanym szlaku bałkańskim. To była pierwsza faza tak masowych migracji. I tu specyfika tej gry polegała na poruszaniu się po kwadratach jak w klatce. Nie będę tego dalej rozwijać. Kolejna gra, która powstała z inspiracji sytuacją w Syrii, to była gra, która też w taki przewrotny sposób zaczynała się w punkcie zewnętrznym i w zasadzie pokazując taką beznadziejną sytuację, skoncentrowała się w środkowej części planszy. Kolejna gra, którą znacie, to jest gra Morze. Wy ją znacie w trochę innej wersji, takiej uproszczonej, a wydaje mi się, że to jest właśnie ta gra w tej pełnej wersji z fotografią morza i oczywiście...
Okay. Just let me translate. So the initial game, Hit the Game, was inspired by the development of the action on Balkan route. That was the first mass wave of migrations. The war in Syria influenced the form of the game borders, the scale of refugee movement, and the mass crossing of the Mediterranean Sea made by the game Sea so radical. The refugee situation on the Poland-EU border with Belarus is difficult to even comment on it. It provoked me to create the game Wood. The game C that I showed here, you know in simple version, why this initial version, the original version, it is much more complicated. And jakbyś mogła przewinąć jeszcze raz do tej gry Morze, żeby pokazać?
Tak, już, bo się zagapiłam.
Yes, so we know only that version with a blue background, while initially it was created as this double version also made in white. Okay.
Dobra, to możemy lecieć dalej. Posługując się, zresztą jak zauważyliście, posługuję się tutaj wybranymi cytatami fotograficznymi. Często to są specjalnie jakby zaprojektowane formy wizualne, zwykle bardzo proste i czytelne i próbuję w ten sposób, takim prostym, można powiedzieć, znakiem graficznym opisać złożoność problemów migracji. To się wydaje niemożliwe, bo w zasadzie skala problemu pokazuje, że ta aktywność, której się podjęłam, ona zaledwie dotyka jakby powierzchu tego problemu, ale w międzyczasie się zorientowałam, że gra ma po prostu nieprawdopodobnie nieograniczone możliwości i może służyć jako narzędzie do opisu zjawisk społecznych.
Okay, using selected photographic quotes, as you noticed, visual forms and imagination, I thus attempted to describe the complex problem of migration. It is impossible to do it accurately. My artistic activity situates me in a different point in the place of an observer. In doing so, I used everything that a game in its form can contain. And it turns out that it has unlimited possibilities to describe social phenomena and in an engaged way. The simple form of the game board illustrates the designed narratives. It even allows you to tailor itself and guides the participants according to the creator's inventions.
Gra niemalże pozwala się skroić na miarę, czyli zgodnie z oczekiwaniami czy z jakąś koncepcją, którą chcielibyście podjąć. Myślę, że daje szansę prowadzić twórcy, uczestników jak po sznurku niemalże. Gra ze swej natury jest praktycznie odległa od prawdziwego życia, a jej niezwykłość opiera się na umowie między twórcą a uczestnikami tej gry, które zwykle zapisuje się w zasadach gry. Jest oddzielona od normalności przez czas i miejsce. Jej struktura narracyjna rządzi się swoimi prawami i ma bardzo dokładnie określone reguły i zasady.
The game, by its very nature, is distant from real life, and its uniqueness is based on the agreement between the creator and of the story and its participants, written in the rules of the game. It is separated from everyday reality or normality by time and place. Its narrative structure is governed by its own laws, and has well-defined rules and principles.
Sieci powiązań, cykle zdarzeń, wybory i złożoność jednostkowych decyzji, strategie w relacjach, losowe punkty styku, to wszystko może zawierać gra. Stąd jej nieograniczone i uniwersalne możliwości zastosowań.
Networks of social connections, cycles of events, choices, and complexity of individual choices, strategies in relationships, random points of contact. Game can contain it all, hence its unlimited and universal applicability.
Stworzyłam gry planszowe w formie obiektów artystycznych. Jednocześnie potraktowałam je jako narzędzia, a nie przedmioty zabawy, bo zwykle gra nam się z zabawą kojarzy, prawda, z rozrywką. Tu, że tak powiem, wprowadziłam złożoność zdarzeń. To pokazuje, jak duże ma możliwości w wykorzystaniu do opisu różnych interakcji społecznych i artystycznych i też z takich pierwszych sygnałów, jak reagują gracze, to uruchamia bardzo zaskakujące reakcje. Staje się narzędziem komunikacji i wymiany do testowania w bezpiecznych warunkach symulacji, co w przypadku tak złożonych gier ma spore znaczenie, bo nie narażamy się na bezpośrednie trudności w realnej sytuacji. Gracz z punktu, jeszcze dokończę tylko, gracz z punktu wciela się w zaplanowaną dla niego rolę. Gra angażuje jego emocje i zainteresowanie w podobnym stopniu co realność zdarzeń.
At the same time, I treated games as tools rather than objects to play, which indicates their potential for use in a variety of social and artistic interactions. They become tools for communication and exchange to be tested out in safe conditions of simulation without directly exposing oneself to the difficulties of the real situation. The player takes on the role planned for him with no hesitation. The game engages his emotions and interests to a similar degree as the reality of events. I create game forms, narrative, rules, principles, and props.
Zamysł tworzenia gier planszowych w limitowanych nakładach powstał w celu zwrócenia uwagi na problem uchodźstwa szerszej grupie odbiorców. Okazało się, że można je szybko wyprodukować w niewielkich nakładach, w mniejszych wymiarach i mniejszym kosztem. a prosta forma gry planszowej okazała się odpowiednim nośnikiem informacji. W zamiarze stawiam zainteresowanych graczy w wyobrażonej sytuacji uchodźcy, który mierzy się z ograniczeniami administracyjnymi poszczególnych państw czy z pogodą i żywiołami przyrody. Z założenia powinna obrazowo pokazać problem dotyczący zjawiska uchodźstwa i migracji w wybranych okolicznościach.
The idea of creating board games in limited editions came about in order to draw attention of the wider audience to the problem of refugee. It turned out that they could be quickly produced in a small edition, smaller in size and at lower costs. The simple form of a board game turned out to be a suitable medium of information. The intention is to put players who are interested in the game in the imagined situation of a refugee who faces the administrative constraints of individual countries or even the weather and elements of nature. By design, the game should engage emotions and attention, vividly showing the problems of the phenomenon of refugees and migration in selected circumstances.
A przy tym w takiej formie, czego zresztą sama doświadczyłaś, mogła stać się narzędziem wsparcia finansowego inicjatyw pomocowych na rzecz uchodźców. Środki ze sprzedaży na aukcjach, zwłaszcza w mediach społecznościowych, właśnie poszły na te organizacje, między innymi sukcesywnie w miarę możliwości wspieram poznańską garażówkę.
And at the same time, in this form, it could become a tool for financial support of refugee initiatives. Funds from the sale and at social media auctions supported ad organizations and successively supported Poznańska Garażówka, so Poznań Garage Sale Initiative, which periodically organizes actions in favor of refugees. In 2007, I created a limited and signed edition of the game Borders in the amount of 53 copies.
Teraz udostępnię grę Las. O, zaraz tu przelecimy. O, właśnie, to jest ten obiekt naszego głównego jakby zainteresowania. Ta gra powstała w grudniu 2021 roku w nakładzie 25 sztuk i rzeczywiście to była akcja błyskawiczna. Sytuacja była bardzo, bardzo rozwojowa i dynamiczna. I ten kryzys migracyjny, który widzieliśmy w zasadzie w kolejnych odsłonach medialnych, okazał się po prostu niewyobrażalnym kryzysem humanitarnym, można powiedzieć w dużym skrócie, gdzie zakładnikami stali się po prostu żywi ludzie, próbujący przedostać się przez granicę, uciekając przed wojną, prześladowaniem, kryzysem ekonomicznym, biedą. Postawili wszystko na jedną kartę.
The next board game, Las, Wood, was created in a limited edition of 25 pieces in December of 2021 in reaction and as an expression of helplessness to the situation on the Polish-EU border with Belarus, or more precisely to the drama unfolding there. The growing migrant crisis that we have seen in successive media exposes is in fact a humanitarian crisis showing the unimaginable drama of many people who have become hostages of political games. Refugees who have tried to make their way to a safe life across the border in very difficult conditions are spending weeks in unfamiliar forest terrain. They are fleeing war, persecution, economic crisis, poverty. They go for broke. International conventions are simply not working here.
A najważniejszym założeniem gry było wzbudzenie w uczestnikach wrażenia zagubienia i bezradności. Inspiracją formy planszy do gry były gwiazdozbiory. Wędrowcy zawsze kierowali się, to jest być może takie romantyczne wyobrażenie, ale wędrowcy zawsze kierowali się układami gwiazd. W najprostszy sposób w odniesieniu do gwiazd wyznaczał się kierunek i trasę wędrówki. Tu paradoksalnie ten gwiazdozbiór jakby na potrzeby tej sytuacji przybrał taką formę różnokolorowych kropeczek.
The most important premise of the game was to arouse in the participants a feeling of confusion and helplessness. The form of the game board was inspired by constellations. Wanderers have always been guided by star system. In the simplest way, with reference to the stars, the direction and route of wandering was determined. There is a grid of paths marked out on the game board. You move along the bright fields marked in the black with lines. The border is formed by green points. You need to get to the other side of the border. Black point, you return to the starting point. Red point, you go back.
Jeszcze chciałabym dodać coś na temat gry morze, skąd jej taka radykalna forma. Też jakby pokazuje tą złożoność sytuacji i taką naszą bezradność, że w zasadzie ta cała sfera polityki decyduje o wielu kwestiach, a my możemy w zasadzie też ta bezradność i bezsilność stawia nas w trudnej sytuacji, można powiedzieć.
As it comes to the game C, I would like to add up that the complexity and helplessness of the political situation and political games places us in the position that we don't really have a move to get out of that situation or to help people who are involved in the situation directly.
O właśnie, tu jest sytuacja. Zostałam zaproszona do namiotu integracji w Gdańsku w 2019 roku.
I was invited to the tent of integration in Gdańsk in 2019.
I to był pierwszy taki moment, kiedy te gry mogłam po prostu praktycznie przetestować i okazały się po prostu w pełni grywalne.
So that was the moment that I could practically test out those games that appeared to be practically applicable by the users.
Jeszcze w temacie gry też istotny moment na zaproszenie atelier WIMAR Stowarzyszenie Łazęga Poznańska. Przeprowadziłam warsztaty na temat tworzenia gier planszowych. Pierwsza edycja była zatytułowana Inny obcy wykluczony. Na drugim podjęliśmy temat Jestem obserwatorem, jestem obserwowany. To było świetne doświadczenie, dlatego po prostu pokazało, że ta możliwość tworzenia prostych gier planszowych leży w możliwościach praktycznie każdego z nas, bo używaliśmy bardzo prostych środków plastycznych.
Yeah, equally important experience in the context to find out if those games are fully playable was a creation of the board games during workshop at the invitation of Atelier WIMAR in Poznań, Łazęga Poznańska. The first edition dealt with the topic entitled Other Alien Excluded. At the second one, we took up the topic I'm an observer, I am observed. Another experience that confirmed in practice the creative potential inherent in creating simple board games on any topic. Further plans for cooperation were unfortunately prevented by the pandemic.
I teraz chciałabym przywołać kilka innych moich prac, które nie są stricte grami planszowymi, ale pojawia się w nich motyw zabawy. Pierwsza taka praca to jest Krucha flaga.
Now I would like to recall other works of mine that are not strictly games, but they all still operate with the motive of play or game. And the first is a fragile flag.
Wystawa Świetlica prezentowana była w Zielonej Górze w marcu 2019 roku. Jak widzicie, praca składała się z kostek z marmuru na tablicy magnetycznej. Całe założenie polegało na tym, że próbowałam naruszyć majestat flagi i w zasadzie to są takie odsłony, co się z tą flagą działo podczas trwania wystawy.
So it was presented in Zielona Góra in Common Room, a place called Common Room, that is Świetlica. To make the work, I used a magnetic board and marble cubes with magnets in white and red, symbolizing the colors of the Polish flag. The starting form is a flag arranged with cubes. My intention was to allow participants in the exhibition to violate the majesty of the flag. The participants were free to rearrange the individual cubes, as can be seen in the effect of successive transformation of the initial form during that exhibition.
Kolejną pracą z tamtej wystawy jest Pangea. Zasada była podobna z tym, że tutaj z wizerunków map różnych państw ze świata, to są też fragmenty tych państw i każdy z uczestników mógł po prostu sobie tą Pangeę na nowo, tą praziemię jakby skomponować po swojemu. Tu daje się po prostu rozpoznać na przykład Afryka, czy Polska, czy Włochy. Myślę, że efekt jakby tych działań był bardzo, bardzo interesujący, bo ta fantazja osób, które mogły to konfigurować, no, była zaskakująca.
So with the work Pangea, I have prepared appropriate motifs, prints on magnetic backing, so the exhibition participants can configure them as they wish in order to recreate the ancient Pangea in their own way. The titles of the works, their meanings inspire multiple possibilities of using the elements.
Kolejną pracą była praca płoty. To jest ta sama zasada i z tym, że tu ten zamysł był taki, żeby zamykać i oddzielać. I tu widać, w jaki sposób, w taki zdecydowanie bardziej graficzny została ta możliwość potraktowana.
Similarly in the work Fences, but the general idea was here to divide and close. But the principle was very similar to the work Pangea.
I teraz, chciałabym wam pokazać taką istotną wystawę, która odbyła się w 2014 roku pod tytułem Błędnie mnie interpretujesz.
Yeah, I'm going back to the September 2014 exhibition titled You Misinterpret Me, or You Are Misinterpreting Me. But I'm guessing this is the allusion to your family name. Myślę, że to jest aluzja do twojego nazwiska, błędnie?
Wiesz co, może być, wiesz co, niewykluczone.
Okay, because the name Błędowska is rooted, that the root of that name is the Polish word błędny or błąd that can be misinterpreted, erroneous, or etc., mistaken, something like that. So it's very interesting kind of play with the family name of the artist.
Ale ta wystawa była o tyle ważna i istotna, że uzmysłowiła mi potencjał, jaki zawiera się w grach planszowych. Tutaj akurat nie było planszy, tu pokażę kilka fotografii. Ułożyłam w takie ciągi, trafiłam na mieszkanie, które było przeznaczone kamienica, mieszkanie w kamienicy, które było przeznaczone do rewitalizacji. To było takie mieszkanie, myślę, że około 200-metrowe, podzielone na cztery mieszkania osobne. I tu zabawiłam się w taką potencjalną grę, z tym, że namawiając jakby każdego z odbiorców czy z uczestników, żeby sobie sami jakby konfigurowali odpowiadające sobie nawzajem elementy, a sama ze swojej strony taką interakcję zawiesiłam, nie dając im wyraźnych wskazówek. To mieszkanie było o tyle ciekawe, że czuło się tutaj ślady mieszkańców zostawione na podłogach, na ścianach. Zostały małe drobiazgi, takie, po które zwykle się nie ma szans schylić.
This exhibition highlighted the potential contained in the possibility of gameplay on a board game, and was only a one-day show in the abandoned apartment in a revitalized tenement at 15/4 Grodgera Street in Poznań. An exhibition to be seen just for 2 hours before it got dark, as the apartment was no longer powered, with clear traces of the inhabitants on the walls, on the floors, with abandoned trinkets. In such a space, I arranged photographic compositions. In the end, I gave the whole thing the form of a game in composed sequences in the structure of a multi-room apartment. At the same time, I deliberately suspended the interaction characteristic of the game, not providing the necessary props for its narration. Only the sketchy visual form of it remained. Private motifs, images taken from media messages are superimposed on a space used for years by strangers and time. I deliberately introduce viewers to a visually ambiguous space, provoking reflection through the prism of the recalled events.
Wystawa była możliwa do zobaczenia tylko przez 2 godziny, do czasu, gdy nie zapadł zmrok, bo w tym mieszkaniu już po prostu nie było prądu.
Yeah, I just told.
Mhm.
Możesz kontynuować, bo już to...
Dobra. Tak jak wspomniałam, zawiesiłam charakterystyczną dla gry interakcję, nie dostarczając koniecznych do jej narracji rekwizytów. Została tylko szkicowa, można powiedzieć, wizualna forma, motywy prywatne, obrazy zaczerpnięte z przekazów medialnych nakładają się na przestrzeń używaną przez obcych mi ludzi i czas. Celowo wprowadziłam odbiorców w przestrzeń wieloznaczną wizualnie, prowokując do refleksji przez pryzmat przywołanych zdarzeń.
I już też to przetłumaczyłam.
Dobra, wiesz co, aha, to w tej chwili będzie to już ostatnia realizacja, którą chciałabym wam pokazać. Zaraz. To były międzynarodowe spotkania artystyczne odbywające się w Zbąszyńskim Centrum Kultury. Hasłem przewodnim była zabawa fan. I teraz jakby temat wyjściowy, temat całej imprezy też sprowokował mnie albo pozwolił po prostu pójść dalej. Stworzyłam taki zestaw klocków, którymi uczestnicy mogli się bawić. To była jedna z pokazanych prac, ale wydaje mi się, że te klocki są o tyle interesujące, że naprawdę uczestnicy mieli naprawdę niezłą frajdę, bawiąc się tymi klockami. Po prostu temat wydarzenia pozwolił zmierzyć się praktycznie z motywem gry i zabawy w kontekście interaktywnego udziału odbiorców. Celowe naruszenie powagi wystawy, na której obiektów zwykle się nie dotyka, okazały się inspirujące. Znoszenie dystansu i intencjonalne stwarzanie sytuacji, by odbiorca się aktywnie angażował, znacząco zmieniło perspektywę moich działań artystycznych.
The last relevant event in this list for me was the International Artistic Encounters held in the summer at the Zbąszyński Cultural Center. I created blogs which I gave to the audience, and I think it was really fun for them to play with them. The motto of the 2019 edition was play/fun. The theme of the event made it possible to grapple practically with the theme of play and fun in the context of interactive audience participation. Intentionally violating the solemnity of the exhibition, where artistic objects are not touched, proved to be truly inspiring. Removing the distance and intentionally creating a situation for the viewer to actively engage has significantly changed my perspective on artistic activities.
Interesuje na tym etapie, mogłabym w zasadzie podsumować taką krótką prezentację, że na tym etapie moich działań artystycznych interesują mnie subtelne formy komunikacji, które mogą zmieniać zachowania i relacje lokalne, najbliższe otoczenie, a w efekcie być może w dalszej perspektywie wpływać na nasze zachowania globalnie. Stąd takie zainteresowanie właśnie relacjami społecznymi człowieka, jego potencjałem związków z miejscem, z przyrodą, ze sztuką, z potrzebą wspólnoty i współuczestnictwa i takie poszukiwanie obszarów pragnień, takie wręcz utopijne, bym powiedziała, ludzkich pragnień, emocji związanych z utratą relacji i tęsknotą za nimi.
I'm interested in subtle forms of communication that can change behaviors and relationships, the local immediate environment, and perhaps in the long run affect change globally. The focus of human social relations, the potential for relationships with place, with nature, with art, with the need for community and participation is an exploration of areas of human desire, emotions related to the loss of these relationships and the longing for them. It is about access to basic social needs and dreams of added values with long-lasting lasting effects, taking into account the increasing complexity of everyday life now and in the future, which have educational power to be used in art and design activities.
To by było, myślę, na tyle.
That's all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Agnieszka. It was really a great talk, and I think that it equipped all of us with extra knowledge to frame our experience with your board games that were already interesting even before the talk. And now I'd like to ask students that were playing the game Wood to tell us about their experience and analysis of your artworks. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me tell a little about the rules. So, as we all know, since 2021, a humanitarian tragedy has been taking place on the Polish-Belarusian borders in connection with the migration crisis. Victims of political fights and demonstrations of power are people who flee to safer and more peaceful areas than their homelands torn by wars and crises. They are left on their own in tragic conditions in forests in areas they don't know, without food, water, and shelters. And this game called The Forest or The Wood is made to visualize as the struggle, the real life humanitarian tragedy. So let's talk about the game rules. Even though it's pretty difficult to compare human tragedies with emotionless game rules like in any other board game. But let's get started. So it can be played by 1 to several players. The set contains 4 counters and a number dice. There is a network of roads marked on the board, and each player can move in the light spaces using lines marked in black. And your goal is to get to the other side of the border that is marked with green points in the middle of the board. And there are also black and red spaces. The black ones get you back to the start, and the red ones make you move back. And to move on the board, each player needs to roll the dice. And even numbers 2, 4, and 6 let you set off from a chosen space marked in red. There are 4 of them, and you can move 1 space forward each time. Odd numbers 1, 3, and 5 make you stay in place and wait for another turn. And as we can see, the rules are pretty simple, but the journey through the board is more complicated, as we will see in a moment. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to show this short movie of the group of students playing the game. But before I start, I would like to ask each of the student to introduce herself or himself in the beginning. So that was Miss Natasza Bosiacka. Yeah, I will introduce the first speaker, but then please go on by introducing yourselves because it's also important for us to get to know one another, and that's the game. Wait. Okay. Yeah. So now, please, the rest of the group, if you may share your experience with that game.
Okay, my name is Janek Kalicki, and I start with our first impression about playing with mentioned before game. We liked the universality of the game the most, which is also the great advantage of this game. We get a board and a instruction which, apart from the title, forest or wood, and suggestive graphical design, are devoid of any context. This allows us to adjust the potential gameplay to any border crossing in Europe and on the world. Currently, especially for us, the game is strongly associated with dramatic situation on the border with Belarus, but depending on the other place and context of players, the associations may be different. The universality of the game is additionally supported by its easy mechanics. The border and instruction, how we can see and hear before, are very simple, so that children can play the game. So this game have huge adductional potential, thus making player more sensitive to problem of migration by identify with migrants. And thank you. This is all from my part.
Thank you.
Right now it's my turn. I am Paula, and so the great value of that game is that that game fits in that certain board game pattern that we know all, and it is also related to some universal feelings because that game at that initial stage builds some sense of competition. So like game participant tries to reach the goal. Tries to cross the border, and player feels some kind of satisfaction when he draws an even number, and disappointment when other players have an advantage, some superiority. So the player feels a bit of pressure, but basically the game is not focused on competition because all participants have equal opportunities and play on the same rules. And also it's interesting is that this longed for crossing the border is the goal of the game, and when the player crosses it, he starts to stray pointlessly. So this shows that the border is the key point of this game, and it also strongly problematizes issues related to immigration or refugee figure, because that immigrants are lost individuals who cannot decide for themselves, and very often they are doomed to pointless wandering. So also I think that that visual representation of the web, a bit like a spider's web, is also connected with full of system of political and social practices and relationships in which rejected refugees are at the center. So I think that the uselessness and passivity of players strongly shows that problem too. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
So hi, my name is Krzysia, and I would like to say you a few words about the emotion which accompanies us during the whole game. And the main feeling was actually a frustration. After crossing the border, we didn't see any deeper goal. To be honest, we felt like it's okay, we finish it, and what next? And this situation in a very unpleasant way evoked feeling of, in one way, of helpless and disorientation, but in other way, we didn't start to feel any deeper connection, relationship with refugees metaphorically symbolized by PAWNS. So in this way, the human element was left out, and there was perhaps an unconscious dehumanization of the situation. And in our opinion, it is the reason of lack of specific narracy.
If I may add, also during our class, Ms. Natasza Bosiacka mentioned that there is no one starting point for each pawn or each person of the game, and that depending on the starting point, the single player or a single pawn may be in a privileged position. So somehow there are hidden privileged position within that game that may be interpreted both as a kind of blind fate that is behind that kind of different position of different pawns, but also it can represent the class, different class background or a class structure of the migrant group, because not every one of them has the same economical situation, and it's and the success is very much dependent on this situation. Okay, so I would just to adapt to what Pani Krzysztofa said.
Okay, so my name is Magda, and I will tell you about our thoughts during the game. So we certainly noticed that we could predict the path of our pawns would move, and this made the game more predictable than real life. Although we know it was not the goal of the wood, And during our conversation after the game, we were thinking that maybe there should be something like a border guard or soldiers who would have control over the position of our pawns and could send us to the red points on the map at any moment. And we wanted to feel relieved while crossing the border, but this feeling is also combined with a feeling of danger and loss of hope when it's not possible to cross that border. And I think these feelings were the most visible while playing in the wood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Michalina Skórka. So, in my opinion, crossing the boundary in the game should be, as in real life, more difficult, in my opinion. My team and I had this idea that, for example, passing the green point might require waiting a turn or drawing a certain number on the dice. But despite the game's simple form, if we compare this game with the refugee crisis, for example, the situation on the Polish-Belarusian border, we are able to feel this substitute for the fight for passing the border and frustration after its crossing, because instead of feeling that we've achieved our goal, we feel lost instead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that situation was somehow very different to our experience with the second game, namely The Sea, that now we are going to discuss with the second group of students that especially focus on that game.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, I'm Veronica. And I will tell you about a second game called The Sea. This game was made to visualize the situation that has been happening since 2020. Immigrants from Africa were fleeing from poor and rebellious African countries, wanting at all costs to reach Europe. They risked their lives setting out to the sea in overcrowded rafts and in pontoons. So let's talk about game rules. You can play as one player or multiply participants. There is 23 black or red pawns and yes or no dice. Place all the pawns on the gray bottom line. Throw the dice. Yes means your pawn crossed the sea one by one. No means you do not cross and put the pawns aside. There are two stages of the crossing. In the first stage, the pawns reach the red line. On the red line, you play by the yes or no rule. In this game, try to get across the sea as many pawns as you can. How many of them will reach the white line? Thanks to the narrative, the potential player will put himself in the situation and place of someone whoever experiences war, cataclysm, economic exclusion, violence, must flee and cross the Mediterranean implicitly. How many potential refugees can you save in this game?
Okay, thank you.
It seems to me that while playing this game, our mindset becomes automatically numb. This is caused by the uncontrolled violence that is being projected on us for decades through various media, action films, video games, social media coverage of wars. They all make us distanced away from the real tragedy and struggle that is going on the border. While playing this game completely unconsciously, we treat the pawns not as real people. We treat them as part of the game, and this causes such impulsive actions as dumping them into the water, aggressively dropping them down. In a way, the player might even feel a sort of very problematic pleasure while doing so. That's it from me. And my name is Edward.
Thanks.
Now I think it's Matilda.
Yeah, so I'm following Edward's speech, and I got to say, my name is Matilda Maciejewska, and I had a similar feeling while playing this game, because I think we live in an age where the flow of information is extremely fast. So thanks to internet and social networks, information from all over the world comes to us really fast. Unfortunately, most of the time, these are accounts of cruel, depressing events. This also makes us very emotionally drained. As a result, our consciousness often blocks this out in order to avoid too much emotional dysregulation or even a nervous breakdown. This is what we had with this game. Despite the issues it raised and it presented, it remained for us just a game in which the pawns remain on the board or not. It generated virtually no emotion in me. However, during the later discussions about it, I felt a kind of shame for having treated it so instrumentally. This is why I think it's important to open up discussions and to be able to express one's experiences openly, so as not to allow the mental mechanisms to lead to total numbness or even the indifference to the problem, to the cause.
Thank you very much. And
hi, my name is Marcelina. For me, in the game, the player assumes the role of the judge who decides whether the pawns manage to cross the sea or drown. The results of the tosses are random. Nevertheless, as Edward and Matilda said, it is up to the player what attitude he takes. He might feel responsible for them or treat them indifferently. The game made me realize in a brutal way that both in the game and in real life, I'm privileged over the refugees, and I observe them from a safe position. I think the mechanics of the game allow a person to enter the situation that would be impossible in normal life. It often seems to me that as an individual, I have no influence over the fate of refugees. In this game, I gained full agency, which made me reflect on my own position in relation to those affected by the migration crisis. The rules of the game imply ethical and moral dilemmas that, in my view, concern a great many of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
hello, my name is Monika, and I think I'm the last person for it. And when it comes to the experience of playing this game, as my friend said, there is something in us that let us treat this game pretty instrumentally, like other board games, and even get pleasure from playing it. And that's why I think it's important to look closely on its form. This game is a board game that contains pawns, dice with yes or no, and 3 rows where we can place pawns on fields. And those simple game rules and gameplay might encourage us to create a new ways of playing it. And for example, we also tried to move pawns back to the start, creating kind of reverse gameplay. And this absorbs us in that entertainment where it is the aim of traditional games. And there is like a pretty unpleasant feeling and big dissonance between playing this game and having fun for doing it, and then reminding us about its meaning and intention behind it as something that makes us aware of the cruel fate of refugees. I think this game might even open a discussion about our morality. Is it okay to play it and have fun while doing it, or we should have game intention in mind. And that's all from me.
Thank you so much. So thank you very much for this nice talk by Agnieszka Błędowska and to all participants of the meeting. I would like just to say that that the situation on the border of Poland and Belarus is not yet resolved. We don't know how many corpses there were in the crops, so and neither we know if that restricted zone that Polish government created near the border was abolished on the 1st of July, as they had promised to abolish it, because the public opinion has not received any extra information since then. And I really hope that in our Institute of Art History in the fall, we will be able to host and invite Agnieszka Błędowska for the series or of the workshops in order to create board games with the students from that seminar class and the rest of students who attend different classes, and would like to invite all students from our institute to continue in the fall. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you, goodbye.
Bye.